Welcome back to my online music theory course. On the last lesson we talked about the different kinds of notes: quarter notes, half notes, whole notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, and we showed you what they look like and how they have stems. Some of them have stems on them, and how the stem can go up or down. Today I'm just going to cover two things that I missed in that lesson, and that was regarding the eighth notes. Eighth notes also have an equivalent rest, part of the same family. So an eighth note rest looks like that, a little dot and a bit of a flag there. Now if I have a 16th note, and a 16th note, as you recall, had two flags on its stem, and I wanted its equivalent rest, I would need two flags on my rest as well. Now these notes, you can find the stem up or down, but when it comes to the rest, you will not flip a rest the other way or do a mirror image of it. The rest will always look the same. It's just the notes that would have the stem up or down, and you can see them differently like that. So that's just a little recap for something that I missed in the last lesson. But today we're going to talk about the relationships between the notes. So I'm going to do a little chart to demonstrate that. Actually, first of all, I want to start with my whole note. Now, in a whole note, it is equal to two half notes. Now, to understand this, I'm going to assign some beats to these notes. I'm going to say a whole note is worth 4 counts. So if I was saying with my little guys, I call them great big whole notes, so they can feel that pulse in a great big whole note and feel that there's 4 pulses or 4 beats when they say that. For the half note, each half note, if we call them half note, it's worth 2 pulses or 2 counts. So we'll say 2 there and 2 there. So if we're thinking math, we know that 2 plus 2 equals 4. So there will be 2 half notes in one whole note. Next on our list are the quarter notes. And I'm drawing 4 of them because each quarter note is actually worth 1 count. As we get more advanced, we're going to find something called the time signature will change how many counts each one gets, but I'm just using this as a demonstration so you can kind of get an idea of how they're related to each other. So each of these will be 1 count each, and in order for them to equal 4 counts or be relative to a whole note, I need 4 of them, 4 counts. If I'm doing a relevant of a half note, I'd need 2 of these because a half note has 2 counts in it, and each quarter note has 1 count, so two quarter notes equal the same amount of pulse or rhythm or counting as a half note. Our whole note equals the same as 2 half notes. You know, I can mix that up a little bit more. Let's show you something else here. If I want to find the equivalent of a whole note, and I see there's a quarter note there, well, 1 quarter doesn't equal the 4 counts of a whole note. So I need to add more here, and I can mix up half notes and quarter. So I know a quarter is 1, another quarter is 1, and a half note is 2. 1 count plus 1 count plus 2 counts equal 4 counts. So we can mix up the combination in order to find the equivalent of the other rhythm. So I'm just going to draw a line here to separate my samples from our chart. So next I'm going to put down a bunch of eighth notes. Now eighth notes are a little different. 2 eighth notes, if we're using this pulse system, equal 1 count. So I have one count there, 1 and 1. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes in order to equal or be equivalent to my whole note. So 8/8 notes are the same as 4 counts. 8/8 notes would also equal a whole note. It would also equal the equivalent of 2 half notes, and it would also equal the equivalent of, and I'm getting messy, 4 quarter notes. 8/8 notes equal all these things. And we'll take it a step farther, and we're going to do our 16th notes. Again, with the 16th note, it has 2 flags on the stem or 2 bars. And I'm going to need a lot of these to be equivalent to my whole note. And one more set gives us what we want. So we have a total of 16 16th notes to equal the same thing as a whole note. Or we can separate it smaller and say to equal an 8th note, we need 4 16th notes to equal the same as 2 8th notes. Or we need 4 16th notes to equal the same thing as 1 quarter note. But we would need 8 16th notes to equal the same thing as a half note. So again, remember when we're combining, let's say my worksheets ask me to find an equivalent of 1 quarter. Well, that's not going to work because I have 1 count in here and this has 4. Something else I need that is only 1 beat. The half note has 2 beats in it, so that's not going to equal my 1. However, I could put the equivalent of a quarter note is 2 8th notes. Or I could put the equivalent of a quarter note is 4 16th notes. So on page 38 here, it shows you a similar chart as what I did. And then it's going to get you to do some practicing with that on page 42. So you're going to use, they say, an 8th and an 8th note equal what equivalent? 2 8th notes. So you'll look at your chart on the other page and say, well, 2 8th notes are the equivalent of 1 quarter note. So you'll draw your 1 quarter note in. The next question says, a half note plus a half note equals or is equivalent to or the same as. So you have to find out, what do 2 half notes equal? Well, we know 2 half notes, and looking at our chart, equal a whole note. They only want you to write 1 note, because I could also say a half note, and a half note is equal to 16 16th notes, but that would be more than 1 note. So in this question, you're looking for 1 note that would be equivalent of the combination they give you. And so the next exercise after that, question 11, is similar to what you just did. And that takes us through some of our basic rhythms and how each of the notes is equivalent or relative to each other, what kind of relationship they have. Again, as I say always in my lessons, if you need extra help with this, please message me and I can explain things further to you. I can even provide you with further worksheets if there's not enough in your book and you feel you need a little bit more practice. So thanks for watching.